And welcome to Weather and Ag in Focus. I'm Chief Meteorologist Dean Wysocki, along with, well, wait a minute, Addison. Are we missing in it? Oh, there's Bridgette. All right. She is with us on the road again. Bridgette, good afternoon. How's everything going? Looks like you're on the road again today. And we lost Bridgette. That's okay.
It's too much pressure being on the radio.
Yeah, I guess so. Well, I'll tell you what. We had our first hard freeze of the season this morning. Obviously a little bit late, but many areas bottomed out in the low to mid-20s this morning. So say goodbye to the growing season and get rid of those allergens and all that good stuff there. Now we await our first snowfall of the season, and I don't see any big storms on the horizon. That's good news for many, but I know we've got some snow lovers out there that would like to see a little winter weather. But unfortunately, or fortunately, whichever way you want to look at it, just doesn't look like it's in the cards here in the short term. But again, we had our first hard freeze of the season, and we're going to continue with a beautiful day today for this time of the year. Sunny skies, light winds. We're looking at temperatures today in the upper 40s. We'll continue with the clear skies tonight. We'll drop down to about freezing. Winds turn to the southeast about 5 to 15. And then as we head into Friday, we're looking at a sunny start to the day. We'll see a few clouds come in the afternoon, and highs in the upper 50s to low 60s. And then the weekend looks breezy and mild. The temperatures over the weekend are going to be in the mid-60s, low to mid-60s around here. But we will have winds out of the southeast at about 15 to 30 over the weekend. And then we're going to have a pretty potent little system come our way out of the Rockies as we head into early next week. Monday and Tuesday stand a pretty good chance for rain, with highs slipping back into the 40s by Tuesday. Current indications are painting out, about a half inch, some spots maybe up to 3/4 of an inch of rain early next week. Not great news for harvest, obviously. And then we'll dry things out for a couple days. And then looks like we're going to have another system coming in here as we head towards, about Halloween. There looks like a clipper system comes our way over Halloween. Doesn't look like a big deal from this standpoint, but I've seen these things kind of sneak up on us where the models just don't quite pick up on the strength of these very well. And again, we're about 3 weeks into the brand new LRC pattern. And, well, so far we've had pretty much temperatures above normal, kind of a roller coaster ride. But now we're starting to see signs of another pattern change. So this will be phase 2 of the first LRC cycle. I do see this starting to change a bit and turn a little more stormy as we start off the month of November. So it'll be interesting to see how these storms in the first couple of weeks in November pan out, because that could play a major role on what the rest of the upcoming winter and spring will hold. So we haven't seen any big storms around here just yet. We've had a few minor ones, so we know that will kind of cycle back throughout the winter and spring. So the next 3 weeks are going to be crucial if you're a snow lover as to how much snow and precip we can expect, not only for the winter, but also into next spring as well. And I believe we have Bridgette now, right, Addison?
Yes, she's here.
All right. Welcome, Bridgette.
Yes, sorry about that. A little travel trouble, but all is well. And yes, I think that widespread frost last night, people are okay with, because for one thing, well, all the bugs finally died. So hallelujah for that much.
Yes, finally. Ugh. And if you're an allergy sufferer, there was still some things in bloom, so that took care of that as well. The trees are really starting to pop now, and as long as we can get these leaves to fall off before we get any significant snow, that's the last thing we need.
We're gonna keep an eye on all things. I do know that when you're talking about rain Monday, Tuesday, folks are going to push really hard to finish some harvest right now, because with rain coming, ground is already wet. We don't really need to get any more holdups in harvest. So a lot of action is going to take place really quickly right now.
How many more weeks do we have, Bridgette, for harvest? A couple?
I don't know. Tell me how many days I have that I have no mud trouble, no rain. As soon as you can tell me that, I can tell you how many days we have left to harvest.
Okay. Well, next week's going to slow it down a little bit. we got a couple systems early next week, and then at the end of next week, a couple of systems coming our way. So, but again, like you said, if we can get a good hard freeze or keep the colder temperatures, you said that helps out a lot as well.
Well, it depends which crop we're talking about. If we stay cooler, sugar beets appreciate that. Um, and for right now, again, I think everyone's just going to try to get as much done as they can before Sunday night, and that's going to be a great thing for all of us, right? Let's just push through, get things as tidied up as possible. We know that wherever people can store or haul grain, they're going to right now.
Gotcha. Yeah. And, well, like I said, we'll eventually get, we've got some nice weather coming through the weekend, but that's when things change next week. Let's see. What else have we got going on here, Bridgette? We've got a special guest coming on from my alma mater, Northern Illinois University. It's been years since I've been back there, but I got to make a trip to get back there. Dr. Vincent Gensini is going to join us in a few minutes, and we're going to talk about a project he has. It's called Ice Chip, and very interesting. I was reading an article on this and didn't even know this was going on. I should keep up to date on more of these things, but they've been studying hail. They get out ahead of these severe storms, and they're doing hail studies. And I was watching some video on this, and boy, some of the research that they've been doing, it'll be interesting to talk to Dr. Gensini and seeing exactly what they've accomplished and what this Ice Chip research project is all about.
Well, and you mentioned something about this has been ongoing for a while, or maybe that's going to be a question when we are joined by our guest is really how long have they been working on this type of thing? Because hail's not new, but I'm curious what this project might mean.
Right. And, remember the old myth, I don't know if you were raised on this, Bridgette, where if you cut a hailstone open, kind of like the rings in a tree. So the rings on the inside of a hailstone, the old saying.
How do you cut a hailstone before it melts, or, what knife slips and cuts your thumb? I mean, really?
That would be your luck, wouldn't it? That the rings inside of a hailstone supposedly were that kind of signified how many trips up and down inside the thunderstorm that this hailstone has taken. That's been the myth. That's one of the questions that we had one of our listeners wanted me to ask Dr. Gensini if that in fact is true, or if that is a myth that has gone back many, many, many years. So we're going to take a quick break here, and when we come back, we'll have Dr. Gensini with the Ice Chip Hail Project on with us. If you have any questions for our guest throughout the show, give us a call, 701-293-9000, or you can email us, weather@flagfamily.com. Don't go anywhere. We'll be right back. And welcome back to Weather and Ag in Focus, 1:19 in the afternoon on this Thursday, October 23rd. And we got a special guest joining us today, Dr. Vincent Gensini from Northern Illinois University, my alma mater. And Dr. Gensini, you guys have been working on a very important project called Ice Chip. Explain a little bit what Ice Chip is all about.
Hey, Dean. Hey, Bridgette. Thanks for having me on. And I, too, like many of your listeners, welcomed the frost this morning, 29 degrees at my house in Aurora. And so I I see all the harvest going on around me, and it's very, very exciting. But it's great to be on. We've got a lot of research going on here at NIU in the agriculture and meteorology space. One of those projects, which you mentioned, is the Ice Chip campaign. And that particular field project, which happened in May and June of this year, all over the central plains of the United States, a lot of winter wheat and summer wheat areas, but also a lot of corn and soybeans. We were all over Texas, Nebraska, Kansas, North Dakota in search of these thunderstorms that produce hail and end up causing a significant amount of agricultural damage every year to the tune of about $60 billion in insured loss.
Oof.
And so the goal for us was really to get out there and better understand these storms that produce large hail. How frequent are they? Can we better forecast their intensity, their location, and ultimately create better resilience strategies, which for agriculture is very difficult, right? You can't just pick up and move your field. But we do need to better understand how corn and soybeans regenerate after these storms occur. And ultimately, at the end of the goal for us is just to better understand scientifically how hail forms, and again, how we can better predict it.
Interesting. And Dr. Gensini, what was one of the main things that you guys kind of gathered during this last season on your research?
Yeah, so we were out for 42 days in the Great Plains taking observations of hail and thunderstorms. And, one of the major questions for us is just how exactly does hail form? That's a very theoretical kind of scientific question. And that's what these field campaigns are designed to do, right? Step one of the scientific method is to go gather observations. And for us, our laboratory is outside, right? We have to go out into the elements and gather these observations. So we were taking Doppler radar measurements, mobile Doppler radar measurements. So we had our own kind of vehicles and trucks with radars mounted on them, pointing these radars at the storm to try to better understand what's happening at various levels. We were kind of like taking MRI scans through these storms. We were obviously collecting hail at the ground. We had weather balloons that were being launched nearby these storms. We were using drones to actually fly over the hail swaths to better characterize their distribution. We have and still ongoing many scientific questions related to hail. Believe it or not, hail is just not something scientifically that we know a lot about. You teased in your opener, kind of how does hail form? This kind of myth that the hailstone goes up into a thunderstorm and it cycles many times and kind of creates these layers. In fact, you can see one of these layers. If you're looking at my phone here, that's an example of a hailstone with multiple layers. They look like rings on a tree, but that's actually not true. Hail doesn't actually form that way.
Interesting.
So, okay, as you're looking at all this, you said multiple states. Which states were you looking at? And there are some that certainly have more hail than others. So was that factored into all of the research as well?
Yeah, good question, Bridgette. We basically go wherever the storms are. We want to take observations. We're not just going to sit on our butts in Iowa or Illinois if all the storms are happening in Kansas and Texas. So on any given day, we were commuting and driving to wherever we thought the greatest likelihood of the largest hail was going to take place. So we were using state-of-the-art forecast models, trying to better understand, hey, we think, the largest hail today is going to be in the Texas Panhandle. We would commute to the Texas Panhandle and set up operations for the day. But we were at one point about 100 miles from the Mexico-Texas border. And then at one other point in the project later in June, we were about 100 miles from the North Dakota-Canada border. So we covered a lot of real estate in the heart of the U.S. in the heart of ag country. We spent quite a bit of time in the Corn Belt, We had some IOPs or operating days in Iowa, Minnesota, portions of the Dakotas. And overall, we had 24 of those days. We had hail greater than 2 inches in diameter.
Oof. And you said something about how the crops regenerate after a hailstorm. What research, what information have you gathered from that so far?
So gathering the observations is step one. That was kind of the the fun part,
Yeah.
I guess, the easy part. Now it becomes the hard part, taking all that data back to the lab. There is a group at the University of Nebraska in Lincoln that's working on. They actually have a hail machine, and they take this hail machine and they damage plots, demonstrative plots of crops to try to see at various phenology during the crop's life cycle, what is the impact, and what's the potential for yield impact on that particular crop and its phenology. You can imagine, right? Early in the life cycle of a crop, you're a little bit more likely to recover versus if you have, softball size hail during the pollination cycle of corn or something like that.
Mhm.
So there are all
Sure.
these different kind of things that occur, and that there is a team that's very interested in kind of looking at the agricultural impacts of hail.
Sure, because with hail, it depends where your growing point is, right? Like you just mentioned, it depends if we're talking about soybeans or corn. Later maturity, or have we got wheat that's headed out? In the case of winter wheat, when winter wheat's a little younger than most crops at that time of the year, it's heading out. How much damage is that going to inflict? And so when you think about that, the impacts of those hailstones, I mean, pun intended, it really makes a difference to the recovery and the economic loss overall in that region, which really drives what you're doing at this point.
Well, you're exactly right, Bridgette. And what's interesting is if you look county by county in terms of agricultural productivity, and then you match the most impactful weather peril to agricultural productivity, for a majority of the Great Plains and Corn Belt, that number one hazard or peril is drought, as you might imagine.
Hmm.
But there are actually many counties in the US where the greater peril is actually hail, especially in Nebraska, western Nebraska, portions of eastern Nebraska that do kind of see a higher frequency of these larger hailstones approaching baseball size or softball size with annual frequencies that do end up causing a significant amount of loss. But again, for a majority of the Great Plains, that tends to be drought.
Okay, that makes sense. What about,
Yeah.
do you ever worry about livestock impact? Has that ever been a
Oh
concern at
yeah,
this point in the
absolutely.
discussion?
Yeah, I mean, of
Okay.
course, when you're talking about human casualties, hail is very unlikely to impact and cause casualties. Although it's been recorded to do so, there actually have been hail fatalities before in casualties. But the outdoor exposed cattle, especially when hailstones start to approach baseball size, there is certainly a non-zero risk of
Hmm.
impacting outdoor livestock when you have those significant events, and other types of weather events too, right? As I'm sure you're all well aware.
I just think about equipment getting smashed by big hailstones. That's expensive.
It is expensive. You don't want to have your combine or any of your instrument, anything outside when a very large hail comes by. Certainly the larger the hail, the greater the kinetic energy, the greater the impact, and that's where you start to see those really high dollar losses.
And Dr. Gensini, were there any other organizations or groups that kind of tagged along with you guys to help you out?
Yeah, in addition to NIU, there were about 13 other universities. We had some nonprofits that were also involved in the research. Most of the research, by the way, was funded by the U.S. National Science Foundation. So just kind of funding this basic fundamental research to try to better understand hail and its impacts on society. But yeah, again, now the fun work begins. We have, for the next few years, we'll be working on research projects that will utilize ice chip data, and eventually, hopefully, it'll trickle down into better hail forecasts for end users. And that's kind of piggybacking on this whole other effort that we have going on. We do a lot of long range forecasting here at NIU. I mean, this has significant agricultural impacts. We've actually been funded in the past to work with USDA and NOAA utilizing their crop progress reports. We have a lot of research going on right now at NIU utilizing USDA crop progress reports, and how those crop progress reports can actually help us overall at the end of the year, how well they correlate to yield. So we have a lot of cool agricultural research going on at NIU, and you should definitely keep us in the loop.
Mhm.
We love this kind of stuff.
Awesome. And
When you
go
you
ahead, Bridget.
mentioned something about end users. Granted, meteorologists, yes, but what about insurance companies? Are they looking at this type of
Yeah,
thing as
there.
well?
Yeah, you hit it. Our number one end user right now for a lot of this hail work is insurance and also reinsurance. As you can imagine, they're very interested in better understanding the risk of their portfolio to hail. That includes crop hail insurance. And maybe not a lot of folks in the Illinois, Indiana area are thinking about that. But as you get out into the Great Plains, many people have crop hail insurance specifically
Hmm.
because of the greater potential for impact from those particular types of events. So yeah, insurance is a big component of this, trying to spread some of that risk around. But at the end of the day, if you look at the number of hail events that have happened over the last 40 years, you're seeing it happen with greater frequency and greater intensity. And so that's something that I think a lot of people are catching them off guard in terms of insurance companies anyway, catching them off guard in terms of underappreciating the risk.
And why do you think that is? Why do you think that these hail events are coming with more frequency over the last 10 to 20 years?
Yeah, we've done some research that suggests there is a warming planet component to this. So as temperatures increase, we get stronger thunderstorm updrafts. And as you can imagine, the easiest way to create large hail is if you can imagine a hair dryer and you turn it on its end, it's pretty easy to balance a ping pong ball on top of that hair dryer. If you want to get really large hail and you want to balance a softball, you're going to need a much stronger hair dryer, right, to lift those larger particles up into the atmosphere. So we think that with warming temperatures, especially near the ground, that creates these stronger, more vigorous updrafts and storms that end up creating larger hailstones.
So essentially, my hair dryer every morning, I'm the cause. Got it. Noted. Okay. All
No,
right.
it has nothing to
Well,
do with your specific hair dryer, right? But overall, these
yeah, well,
these thunderstorms can become quite powerful, and we look for very specific types of thunderstorms in terms of producing large hail. We lots of thunderstorms happen every year all over the globe, but it takes a very special thunderstorm to get these very, very large hailstones.
well, don't worry. I bet my Aquanet in the 80s did more damage. So
Yeah.
hold tight. We have some news to take care of. When we come back, we will continue our discussion with Dr. Vincent Gensini. He is with the Ice Chip Hail Project at Northern Illinois University. Stay tuned and bring us your phone calls on the JLA Insurance phone line 701-293-9000. And today is a great day to be checking the fence check assessment with Tech Support Farm. Chris has been working with me on cybersecurity to make sure I'm up to speed as well. How about you? My challenge is that you take the fence check assessment, make sure things are all good at your place, your agribusiness, your farm, and if they're not, Chris will help you out. And also to those folks that have been a big part of our Here We Grow project throughout the growing season, Progressive Ag, your risk management specialist, and Vision Ford. Buy with Vision, check them out down in Wahpeton. In fact, if you see a vehicle online that you're interested in, they'll bring it to you. Today, our guest joining us is Dr. Vincent Gensini. We're talking about hail about it all. So, questions for him can be taken on the JLA Insurance phone line of 701-293-9000. And so, with this project, how much further in the future are you going? I feel like this is just a stop in the road of research, correct?
Yeah, it really is, Bridget. I mean, this is really for me a lifelong passion. I mean, I grew up in the farm fields of north central Illinois in the smallest county in the state, and fell in love with the sky, because there were no trees and buildings in the way. And I just loved meteorology from a young age. And when I was in high school, a tornado hit my high school. And then I started asking all kinds of questions related to atmospheric science, and then set on a path that today I'm still asking some of these very fundamental questions. And so this has been a lifelong journey for me. The Ice Chip Field campaign in general has been an 8-year sort of child that I've raised at this point. And it is really just a stop in the road. I mean, we have a lot to do in terms of understanding the impacts of severe storms, including hail, on society. That includes agriculture. And we have lots of graduate students here at NIU that are doing weather and climate research, as it directly pertains to agriculture, agricultural productivity, and impacts of weather on other aspects of society.
And Dr. Gensini, we had a email question from one of our listeners saying, how do you expect this research to impact or to help our agriculture community?
Well, one thing, it helps inform risk, right? So for any individual local farm owner, it certainly is going to inform insurance premiums, right? And so for better or worse, you're going to get impacted by these types of studies that understand or hope to fully understand the risk that any individual weather peril has on your particular local scale farm. Down the road, we hope that these types of forecasts become a little bit more accurate, right? We would like to say with some degree of accuracy that today this region or these sets of counties are at most risk to be impacted by hail. And then, of course, be precise about the actual hail size. If it's just beneficial rainfall and very small hail that doesn't accumulate, that could actually be a very beneficial thing for agriculture. So there are different stakeholders, different users of this information will find different levels of value. But at the end of the day, if you are a weather consumer, like many of your listeners are, we hope to be able to provide more accurate information for these types of perils.
So, what are the parameters for hail? Besides my grandpa looking at the sky going, boy, that one looks like a hail cloud. So, I'm curious, what really does bring hail to the forefront of a storm?
Yeah, hail is really a function of, again, how strong that thunderstorm updraft is. So when you're sitting there and you're looking outside and you see those big billowing cumulonimbus clouds that sort of look like cauliflower out there, the sharper they are, the more crisp they are, the more they look like cauliflower, the more likely they are producing a very strong updraft. There's other thunderstorms and clouds that you look at that kind of look more like mashed potatoes. Those are not as strong updrafts, and they typically will not be producing large hail. There's other parameters in the storm. We look for the temperature distribution. Obviously, if it's too hot, you'll just get a lot of rain. You won't necessarily get hail. So there are meteorological factors that we look at on a day-to-day basis to try to predict hail. Hail size is still one of the things that we're really, I think not great at. So what sets apart a storm that produces baseball size hail versus one that only produces quarter size hail or penny size hail? There are some fundamental things that I think are leading us to better understand those processes, but that is one of the scientific questions that we have with this ice chip campaign.
so that's helpful because you have people that are thinking, all right, when I say parameters, certain temperature, certain percent humidity, etc. And you're saying really it just depends on that hair dryer effect, if you will, of what we could see.
It really does. And a lot of it is not necessarily what's going on at field level, right? It's actually what's going on way above your head. And that's where these weather balloons come in to measure the temperature profile and what's the wind speed and direction at 10,000 feet, 20,000 feet, 30,000 feet above the ground. Those parameters are way more important for the production of hail than what's happening just right at the ground.
And Dr. Gensini, is there anything within your research that is, so once you gather information on these hailstones, the size of them, and do more research on that, any part of your research include anything we can do in terms of, I hate to use the word cloud seeding, but anything to minimize the hail size to lessen the impact on our ag community and the damage that it does?
Question. Yeah, no, that's a great question. I mean, cloud seeding has been tested for many, many years in terms of its efficacy, and it's proven to be, in most cases, not a great at moving the needle one way or the other, sort of inconclusive. But there are cloud seeding projects that happen every year, specifically in North Dakota, that are trying to seed hail clouds to see what the impact would be in terms of hail mitigation and reduction. And again, the science right now out that's published in the literature is rather inconclusive as to whether or not those types of efforts have any real effect. And usually it's because the scale necessary to be able to mitigate hail forming in a thunderstorm is just unattainable by one single aircraft that's seeding a cloud. But we'll see. The jury is still out, so to speak, as to whether or not this is, this would be something that could be done in such a widespread manner to be able to mitigate hail. In addition, these storms have a very short life cycle. They can pop up, form in a couple of hours, and then move away. And so there would have to be cloud seeding operations that would be close enough to be able to get to that storm, seed the cloud, and in an amount of time required before the storm was able to form and go through maturity and then decay. And a lot of times that's just not, there's the cost benefit analysis of doing that is just not there, right?
Hopefully with technology and drones, that will change over the next
very possible
next 10 years or so. We also had another question come in from one of our listeners via email asking, is it true, and we brought this up earlier, is it true or is it false? The number of rings inside of a hailstone, when you cut that open, signifies the number of times that has taken a trip up and down inside of one of these supercells.
That is false. In fact, we think trajectories in hail, basically the hailstone goes up through the updraft. It might make one round around what we call the mesocyclone, this rotating part of the thunderstorm, and then it falls out. I grew up with this idea of, hey, there's a thunderstorm updraft, and these rings are the number of cycles up and down, up and down, up and updraft, downdraft, updraft. That actually just simply doesn't occur. There's a lot of different growth regimes, and those are all the different layers that you see. The white layers look like that's what we call dry growth. Basically, the water freezes really fast and traps the air bubbles in. And then there's other times where the freezing and accretion happens at a much slower rate, and the hail looks very clear. You can see through it. So, but from what we can tell in all of our trajectory studies of how hail moves through a thunderstorm, it actually just spends one time going up. It may hover for a while, right? It may kind of sit at different areas in hover and move horizontally, but then it falls out. As soon as that hair dryer can't support the weight anymore, it'll start making its way back to the surface of the earth. And so that whole idea of the up and down, we need to kind of remove that from from our knowledge base.
Right.
Yeah.
New facts to be taught to meteorological students.
That's right.
Well, Dr. Gensini, if people want to find out more about your research project and how it's ongoing, what's the best way they can learn more about that?
Yeah, so there's two websites. The first on IceChip is pretty straightforward. It's just IceChip www.ws.niu.edu. And then if you want to follow our research more broadly in terms of what we're doing with weather forecasting, especially long range forecasting, so seasonal to subseasonal forecasts, we have a lot of research going on that. And then also that research that I mentioned related to agriculture and meteorology and productivity. You can go to our research group homepage, which is wcs.niu.edu, Weather Climate Society, so wcs.niu.edu.
Excellent. All right, WCS. Say that again.
You
I'm
know,
sorry.
yeah, no. What I'll do is I can email you all these links, and then we can get them up on your homepage or something like that.
There
to
you go.
show the
Okay,
work.
yeah. Our producer just pulled that up. I believe, Addison, is that the website he was talking about? Okay, perfect. Well, Dr. Gensini, thank you so much for joining us today on Weather and Ag in Focus. We appreciate your time. I think we lost him. I was going to tell him go Huskies before he left. Well, when we come back, we're going to have a recap on our weather, what it looks like for this upcoming weekend and into next week. And Bridgette will touch on a couple of ag topics as well. So don't go anywhere. We'll be right back. And welcome back to Weather and Ag in Focus, 1:51 in the afternoon on this Thursday, October 23rd. Temperatures outside generally in the 40s across the area. We've got a lot of sunshine, light winds, really not a bad fall day out there. And we're looking at temperatures today topping out in the upper 40s to low 50s and light winds. And then tonight, not as cold. We bottomed out in the low 20s across much of the area this morning. Tonight, we'll be in the right around that 30-degree range as winds turn to the southeast, and they'll pick up a little bit, about 5 to 15, so that'll prevent us from getting as cold. And then we'll warm up even further on Friday. We'll have sunshine to start off the day, but then we'll see partly cloudy skies as we head into the afternoon. Highs in the upper 50s to near 60. And then as we head into the weekend, it turns breezy and warmer with highs in the low to mid 60s both Saturday and Sunday, with winds out of the southeast at about 15 to 30. Now, the pick day of the weekend more than likely going to be Saturday, as we'll see more clouds on Sunday, but both days should be dry. But then we're keeping an eye on a potential rainmaker coming in here as we head into Monday and Tuesday of next week. That looks to bring some more widespread rain to generally the central and eastern parts of the state. The far western part of the state not receiving a whole lot. How much rain? Right now, it looks like anywhere between about a quarter inch and 3/4 of an inch. I know that's not great news, Bridgette, for harvest. And then we'll dry things out for Wednesday and Thursday with temperatures in the 40s and 50s. And then another system comes our way. It looks relatively weak from this standpoint. That might change. We'll keep an eye on it. But a clipper system comes our way as we head towards Halloween next Friday, bringing us another chance of precip. Looks like mainly rain, followed by cooler weather. Now, we're still going to have a relatively at or above normal weather pattern until we get into that first week of November. I'm starting to see signs that the colder air from Canada is going to start making its trip southward and interact with some more of these storm systems that ride out of the Pacific Northwest. As that interacts with the cooler air starting to finally come down from Canada, I think we'll start to see our chances of snow increase after about the 5th of November, it looks like right now. We'll see how that pans out. That could change, but that's the way it's kind of looking right now.
Well, we're going to see where those things go. But again, just the same as I'm going to be talking about ag all day on Wednesday, November the 5th. That'll be our WDAY farm show, where we'll be joined by programming all day long, guests from 8:30 to 5 o'clock, talking about everything that affects you when it comes to agriculture, agronomy, cattle, so much more. Much like I'm doing that, Dean, you'll have a special coming up eventually too, where we're going to talk about the next 6 months through the winter, what that's going to be like.
Yeah, we'll have our LRC special coming up. We're still trying to iron out the dates. We're either going to have that right before Thanksgiving or shortly after Thanksgiving. We'd like to have it right before Thanksgiving, but we've got to make sure that the cycle is already set by then. Now, it should definitely be set by Thanksgiving. Not a guarantee, but it should be. So we're trying to iron out the dates right before Thanksgiving. We'll have Gary Lezak on, and we'll be talking about what the upcoming winter looks like and take a peek into the upcoming spring as well. Now, as we all know, the last 2 winters have been pretty much a cakewalk around here in regards to our typical winters. So again, watch the weather over the next, let's say, 2 to 3 weeks. If we start to turn more active, now we've seen a couple storms already in this first part of the LRC cycle. We've seen a couple storms already that have brought us anywhere between anywhere between a quarter inch, 3/4 of an inch of liquid precip. So again, as we get deeper into the season, those storms could, be a little bit different, a little further shift in terms of giving us more snow than rain. But again, that's what we're keeping an eye on, is these systems that pass through our area. And the next 2 to 3 weeks will be crucial. If we have a drier than normal pattern here over the next 2 to 3 weeks, then that will very well translate into a drier than normal winter and unfortunately into spring. Am I foreseeing that? No. But again, just keep a very close eye on the weather here over the next 2 to 3 weeks, because that will play a big part on what we can expect not only for the upcoming winter, but also into the spring for our ag community as well.
I'm not terribly afraid of going into spring. or having a spring that's coming in a little bit on the drier side. Because if we're going to freeze up wet, which it appears that we probably will,
Mm-hmm.
then we're going to need to be able to get a crop in the ground. And if Mother Nature can level that out, say around the beginning of June, when we've already finished planting, and then we start getting some rain, that's not a bad situation.
Good point. Good point. So,
So
you have any ag topics
see
to
what
hit
that
on real
looks like.
quick, Bridgette?
So as your weather bounces around right now, particularly we're going from warm days and cool nights, it's difficult to prevent respiratory illness in cattle. And that can happen as well in sheep and other species as well. But with these heavy fogs, a lot of humidity in the air, it's perfect conditions. And so it's the environment that will harbor bacteria and help transmit that animal to animal. It's kind of like sending your kids back to school and everybody comes home with an illness. When you bring the cattle home from pasture, it's time to start weaning, and calves are under some stress. They're maybe not eating the way they should. They're restless. And now we have this potential for bacteria transfer that can bring in pneumonia and other respiratory illnesses. Well, yep, it's like back to school, but this time it's in the cattle pen. And so if you notice calves are slow to drink, not eating as much, maybe older animals are not aggressively eating, meaning they're not elbowing their way into the feed bunk, it might be time to have a check by the vet. You can hear them hacking, coughing. You can see nasal discharge as well. And that's also an indication that we're going to start to see a respiratory event happening. And it'll pass very quickly through the herd. So getting your vet on board is important. Those folks will help to make sure that things are accurately diagnosed and taken care of. And then also with the discussion we've been having about the New World screwworm, last confirmed case was 70 miles south of the U.S.-Mexican border. We now have a temporary or a conditional approval for I gotta find the name now. Shoot, Dectamax. It's Dectamax, and so we're able to start using that as a preventative if we've had an infestation, and hopefully to prevent problems going down the road as the screwworm moves northward.
All right. Well, for Bridgette, myself, we want to thank everybody for joining us today on Weather and Ag in Focus. Excuse me. Oh, I'm getting all choked up because of Jay Thomas Show that's coming up next.